What's up, y'all? I'm Tyler. Welcome back to the channel. So I got into 4 of the top 7 MBA programs in the United States, and I ultimately chose Wharton. So today I'm going to be showing you exactly how I got in, what I did in my application. I'll be exposing my entire application to you. I've built plenty of relationships with adcoms, and I've been a part of several MBA prep programs. And I just want to share with you what I've learned and hopefully help you get into your dream business school. So this video will be broken down into 3 parts. First, I'll go over the admissions process and everything that I've learned during the admissions process to help give you a baseline. Then I'm going to be exposing my application given that baseline that I talk about. So I'll be showing you what I put in my essays, what I put in my resumes, the whole 9. And then lastly, I'll just give you 3 quick tips that are very impactful to help you get into your dream MBA. The admissions process. Follow me here. So here's what you need to know about the MBA admissions process. The quality and ranking of a business school hinges solely on its reputation, and its reputation relies on the people that it lets into the school. These individuals, as alumni, play a critical role in shaping the school's standing based on what they contribute not only to the world, but their potential to contribute back to the program. So you have to keep this in mind. While your GMAT score and your GPA offer limited insights into your likelihood to succeed, it's actually your leadership style, your past achievements, and your journey to your achievements that truly tell the adcoms if you're gonna succeed after business school. So I'll break it down like this. If we look at your MBA application as a pie chart, think about 40% of that pie chart as your fixables, right? Where you're at. So your GMAT score, your GPA, your student background. And 60% of that pie is where you're going. And these things are controllable, right? So think about your essays, your letters of recommendation, your resume, your short answer questions, your reference letters. All of these controllable elements of your application are worth more than your standardized test scores, your GPA, your background, all of those things. And I'll explain more later. My point is you can still win in your MBA application if you haven't maximized those things because you still have the 60% of the controllable things that you can do. Okay, now let's get busy and get into my application. So I wanna break down my application using that 60-40 framework I talked about, and I'm actually gonna refer to the Wharton class profile for an accurate comparison. First, let's talk about my GMAT. Transparently, I scored a 640 on the GMAT, and as you can see, that is well below the class profile average. Still here, still killing it, we're good. My undergraduate GPA is another place where I scored below class average, but I reconcile this in my optional essay talking about some of my struggles, and I also pursued a master's and I earned a 3.9 GPA in my master's. So there's still some wiggle room with the quote unquote non-controllables. And as far as my student bio, I just talked a little bit about where and how I grew up. Clearly, I went to the United States Air Force Academy, played football there. I started a couple of programs while I was at the academy, did a couple of leadership programs there, won a couple of awards, and I talk about these things in depth in my application. So as we take a step back and look at this, you can see the only thing I really outperformed is my student profile because I went to a prestigious undergrad. I underperformed on the test score and your GPA, but I still got into the school. But again, don't neglect your test. Work hard on the test. Try to ace the test. All right, now let's talk about the controllables or where I'm going. Again, that's 60% part of the application. Number 1, the resume. Now, I think this is the most important part of the application. Other people may tell you different. From my experience, the resume is the most important part of the application. The resume tells the adcom exactly how and where you fit when it comes to the brand of the school and the class profile. And if your resume is written correctly, it can also communicate to the adcom that you will succeed during school and after school. So I use my resume to talk about my professional experience, talk about the results that I produced during my professional experience, and I talked about my personality as well. I think I had some things in there that had nothing to do with work, and I'll get into that in a second. A couple of key things that I wanted to highlight in my resume. I wanted to show that I was a winner, that I was a leader, that I was reliable, that I was a real human with real convictions and real interests. And I did this through every element of my resume, from my experiences to my extracurricular activities. I even think I put on my resume that I like to freestyle rap and I like R&B music. And here's like a real quick summary of my resume. So I commissioned in the United States Air Force in 2018, where I spent the first 3 years of my career holding various leadership roles in HR, info systems, logistics, crisis management, etc. The last 2 years of my career, I worked in the Space Force, where I was the military head of HR for a space base in Colorado, and I ultimately became the chief of staff for the guy who runs the base. And in between all of that, I earned my MPA. I was very active in organizations that helped level the playing field for disadvantaged groups, did a couple of real estate investing projects, and on the side, I like to do cocktail mixology. I like to host people as a hobby, and I'm a health and fitness advocate, and I'm probably the biggest Dallas Cowboy fan you'll ever meet. Now, I put all of that in my resume, and obviously there are more numbers to add color to it. So as you can see, my resume was an inclusive look into who I am, not just professionally, but what I like to do as extracurriculars and what matters to me. All right, for the next part, we'll look at the essays. So the perfect essay will not make up for subpar academic performance or subpar career experience. But what a great essay can do is add color to your whole application and communicate to the admissions committee that you as an applicant are within the range of what the school can afford to let into the program. So for me, I wanted my essays to focus on what I could do in business school, why I'm an asset to the business school, and why I will succeed after business school. I believe strongly in my journey and what I had been through, and I wanted to communicate to them that despite what was on paper, I am right for the school. Now, I'm not going to read my whole essay, but in the nutshell, this is what my essay said. I appreciated my grandmother's efforts to shield me from my circumstances while sharpening my entrepreneurial instincts. I overcame some institutionalized obstacles and some unforeseen personal tragedies to get to college. When I get to college, I realized that I was a product of economic neglect as I was exposed to how functional and affluent middle-class families work. As a first-generation college graduate, this disparity made me upset. So I pursued my MPA, attempting to fix the issue, or at least learn how to fix the issue. To my surprise, I realized that you can't make substantial change in any community without relationships and money, and that's where me and capitalism fell in love. No, I'm just playing. Definitely just kidding. Kinda. But I did write about this story as a catalyst to my interest in business school and how I want to learn business acumen, use it to help my community, blase, you get the story. Now, obviously my essays had a lot more detail than this, but the point is they capture the cards that I was dealt in life, what matters most to me, and what fuels my aptitude for success. And I use more detail to highlight the X factor, something that I bring to the table at business school that nobody else can bring to the table. And that's how you want to approach your essays. The next part of the application is your letters of recommendation. And this is something that people underestimate, but it's very important. You want to use your letters of recommendation to highlight any gaps and re-emphasize the main points of your application. So for my recommenders, I really wanted to highlight my analytical skills, my ability to influence people in tough environments, and my perseverance and grit, the ability to get through tough situations. Now, here are 2 quick tips for letters of recommendation. Make sure your recommenders understand the assignment. Help them out. Give them an outline. Make sure they hit what you want them to hit, and make sure they hit what the school is looking for. And the second thing, pick a good writer. Remember, there's a psychological element to your business school application, and you want to make sure that your application can engage the writer. So having a letter of recommendation that is in good writing will go a long way for you. And finally, the interview. The interview is one of the most important parts of the application because it can literally make or break whether the admissions committee says yes or no. And just because you get the interview does not mean the job is done. You still have to perform. So I like to approach the interviews as a vibe check. I wanted them to know that I am who I said I was on paper. And this is important because you could be very impressive on paper but turn out to be a real butthole in the interview. And you don't want to do that. And vice versa, you can come across as sort of questionable or sort of uncertain on paper. But if you're very charismatic, you have great interview skills, you answer the questions, you knock them out the park, you can get the upper edge. So that's why the interview is very, very important. So generally, I'm pretty confident in my interview skills. I didn't have a problem with the interview. I got into every school that I interviewed for. I made everybody smile and laugh that I interviewed with. I answered all the questions, knocked them out the park. And I really made sure I proved to the admissions committee or the person that was interviewing me that I had done extensive research well beyond anything that you can find online. Now, for Wharton specifically, it's a team-based discussion. So you have about 30 minutes in a group of about 5 to 7 people to answer a prompt. And then you have your traditional 10 or 15 minutes after the TBD is what we call it, to have your traditional interview. And here are my 3 real quick but very, very important tips for the Wharton TBD discussion. First thing, reps. I did about 7 to 10 TBD practices, and this worked for me. It took about 7 reps for me to find my rhythm. Secondly, memorize your pitch. It's a 60-second pitch. Commit it to memory. Practice it. You will stand out amongst everyone else. And the third thing, do no harm. Just don't do it. I'm not saying don't challenge your classmates. What I am saying is if you don't know how to tastefully and tactfully challenge a point, don't risk your admittance trying to be a hero. Don't do it. And finally, 3 quick tips to help you get into your dream MBA program. Now remember, a compelling leadership story and a story of perseverance is way more important than impressive accomplishments. Although accomplishments are important, they're not more important than you being a leader. So as I was filling out my application, I kept asking myself, am I presenting myself as someone that the admissions committee would want to meet? So the first point is focus on engaging versus showcasing. Engage the admissions committee and not just showcasing your accomplishments. Now remember, you're competing against people who come from the top firms in the world, and they can put endless amounts of money and endless amounts of prestige into their applications, but you cannot buy a good story and a good testimony. So dig deep into your process. There were times during this process where I cried while writing my essays. I wanted to really articulate why my life was the way that it was and really showcase that I will be successful no matter where I go and that I am an asset to the school. So the second takeaway here is dig deep on your essays and on your short answers because both of them matter. And finally, get on campus, go to webinars, go to conferences, go to networking events, get out of your comfort zone and get out of your way. I lived across the country from all of the schools that I was applying for, but I still made it a point to get to Wharton at least 2 times a year, get in front of the AdComs, get in front of students, and I traveled during off-season hours to make sure that I was one of the few applicants or the few prospective students rather that were on campus. And this really taught me what made Wharton special and what made the people of Wharton special so I can begin to talk that language and embody what it means to be a Wharton student. So the final point is network, don't be prideful and don't apologize for it. So if you remember, I mentioned earlier that getting into a top MBA program can change your life, and it will. But if you start building good habits now, you can actually see your life change for the better today. And in this video, I actually go in depth with some of the daily habits that will help make me a millionaire. Check it out and let's grow together. Did in my application. Yeah, that still ain't it. That sounds super sloppy, boy. Tongue-tied, boy. 4 of the top 7 schools in the, not 7 schools, bro. Business schools, bro. I guess we got some more bloopers. I can't even get started. So my GMAT. There's literally a siren going off. That's one thing I hate about Philly, man. It's always sirens going off. Or career experience. Damn.